I've worked really hard to see myself in certain dimensions. And when I turn to the side and I see that the silhouette reflected at me is much thicker, it really freaks me out. Hi everybody. I'm in the middle of a massive out-of-state move, and that is only one crazy thing happening in my life right now. Part of my 2022 journey is being a lot more transparent about the things that I'm going through. My name is Fairly Theta. I'm a professional astrologer, and a lot of my job involves helping clients navigate through personal transformation. It's something I really love doing, and it means the world to me that my clients trust me with such really deep, personal, vulnerable moments in their lives. But I don't always feel comfortable sharing my own. It's becoming apparent to me that this is no longer an option, and that in order for me to do the best work that I can, I do need to be a lot more transparent. And that starts here. I am currently 25 weeks pregnant, and it has been hands down the most transformational experience of my life. Some of you might have found my channel through a series of videos I did on women's health, and specifically the women's healthcare industry, and how betrayed I felt by it. Consider this kind of an update, if you will. I found out that I was pregnant in the summer. It was kind of part of this like goodbye to maidenhood experience. It started to unravel a lot of the feelings that I have around healthcare and the expectations on women when it comes to pregnancy, and especially some of the standards that have been set, both for standard of care and also for standard of being. A lot of it has to do with appearance and work ethic and things like that that really started to unravel in my first trimester. I don't want to call it difficult first trimester, it really wasn't difficult, but I was sick all the time. Like, honestly, the moment my eyes opened in the morning to the minute they closed at night, and then every time I woke up in the middle of the night, I was sick as a dog the entire time. But that was, there was no other catastrophic symptoms that I had. But it did give me a lot of time to sit with myself alone and reschedule all of my appointments and just kind of linger in this weird unknown space. And I realized that the fears that I have surrounding pregnancy actually have nothing to do with giving birth. What I am afraid of is something I've actually been really afraid to talk about because it feels really shallow to me. When I was a kid, I didn't exactly have the best diet, it was very standard American diet stuff. My family ate a lot of processed foods. I had Lyme disease. I got it when I was about 4. This is another whole healthcare nonsense nightmare story that I could talk about forever, but very long story short, as it applies to this story, I got really sick around 14, and I was put on an IV treatment for my Lyme, and because of the medications and the sickness that it kind of exacerbated, I lost a lot of weight. So at 14, being very, very ill with a very visible IV line in my arm and dropping weight by the day, everybody I knew, including family members, told me how amazing I looked. And that sticks with you. The weight started to come back as I started to eat more normally for myself. And I couldn't deal. And all of that, I can't eat, I'm too sick to eat, was a great excuse to cover the fact that I was addicted to this idea of appearing willowy and fragile and barely there. And it got really bad. It got really bad. And I laugh because I have to, you know, because otherwise I start to cry, and there's gonna be a lot of this in this video, so buckle in, guys. I became anorexic as a teenager, and then when my doctors caught on, when my parents caught on, they would force me to eat, and I just got trickier and became bulimic. I would purge whatever they forced me to eat. And this continued for years. By the time I was an adult, in my 20s, I had very deeply internalized this idea of thin as possible. Unreasonably thin was better. It was actually kind of a rush to stand up and get dizzy because I hadn't eaten in 24 hours, or, you know, see how long I can go before somebody notices that I haven't eaten anything. And I didn't really pass out. Like, I learned, just like I said, how to game the system just enough to continue to live. There were a lot of times in my life where I would have insisted that I didn't want children. It was because I was afraid of undoing everything I'd worked really hard to achieve in my body. The very first time that I met the midwife I've been working with, I was asked to get on the scale and immediately started crying, having to explain to her the whole story of how I've mistreated myself and how I have to rewrite so many constructs in my head surrounding my appearance and my body. It was really difficult, and it's still really difficult. I was terrified of the commentary, I think, more than anything, you know, having people point out the changes in my body. My midwife was like, you know, try to remind yourself when you look at pictures of pregnant women, like, you don't think, ew, how gross, you know, or like, ugh, that's disgusting. You probably find it really beautiful. And I do, but not for me. I can look at somebody else and I can look at the changes in their body, and I can look at the way that their body has adapted to carry this new life and find it really awe-inspiring and amazing. But I've worked really hard to see myself in certain dimensions. And when I turn to the side and I see that the silhouette reflected at me is much thicker, it really freaks me out. Dysphoria rushes back in full force. That said, I am at 25 weeks right now, and that means that I'm nearing the end of my second trimester. My baby is roughly 13 inches long and 1.5 pounds. If I was only gaining 1.5 pounds, I might be able to deal with that. That's not how any of this works. The placenta alone is something like 4 pounds, and you double your blood supply, and that's another, like... So all of these things, you know, contribute to elevated maternal weight. The medical, like, model will certainly tell you that a healthy pregnancy within a healthy BMI range will probably run about 15 to 25 pounds placental weight, and blood supply and amniotic fluid and all of that goes away once the baby is born. So I do try to keep that in mind, and that's not to say that you should expect to just drop right back to your pre-pregnancy weight when you have a baby. I know that is wildly unrealistic, because again, that breast tissue stays there, and you know, you need a certain amount of fat stores in certain parts of your body to produce breast milk and all of these things that go into raising a baby. And I just keep trying. I just keep trying to remind myself that this is not about me. That this is about creating and giving my child the best start that I can. And that my body is meant to do this. My body was made to make this happen. And that it has its own intelligence and it is doing what it needs to do. And I'm deeply grateful that to this point, everything has been perfect. I have experienced nothing out of the ordinary, nothing even on the far end of the spectrum of ordinary. Everything has been exactly what I should anticipate. That doesn't make it easy to watch in the mirror. Every time I tell people that I'm pregnant, I get comments like, "Oh my God, you don't even look pregnant." But to me, I do look pregnant. You know, there was a deep fear around the time where I started to kind of show, where I would ask my husband like every hour and a half whether I looked pregnant or whether I just looked like I let myself go during the pandemic. I think that we're trained to look at maternity catalogs and like, you know, websites and be like, oh, look at these long, lanky, skinny models with these perfectly round beach ball babies and, you know, they look so cute and pregnant. I'm really trying to work on it and I'm trying to get okay with the idea of people seeing me like this, which is another reason why I haven't really recorded any videos in a while. You know, when I found out I was pregnant, I joked with my husband too. I was like, I'm just gonna pull like, you know, an old Hollywood and just disappear for 9 months. But I'd be lying if I did that. I would be absolutely, completely inauthentic. That's not who I am, that's not what I stand for, and I'm not gonna do that. So instead, I'm getting completely, blatantly transparent about all of it. That's been my tactic, ultimately, is to just try to remember that everything I'm experiencing is in the name of healthy labor, healthy childbirth, a healthy child. I can't get that if I'm gaming nutrition. When they say things like, you're eating for two, what they really mean is you really need to consider that you're not the only one experiencing the food that you're taking in. It's not about volume, it's about nutrition. So making the smartest choices possible and understanding that it's not about what you want, it's about what's going to have the best outcome, the most impact on your baby. I've been very, very, very closely listening to my body and what it needs, because it is doing a lot of work for more than one person at this point. So I need to honor that. I think if you've ever struggled with an eating disorder, you know that it is a lifelong thing. There will always be that little voice in your head telling you what you're doing wrong and encouraging you to experience damaging behaviors. That doesn't go away, at least not in my experience. It's never gone away from me. But I'm getting much better about not listening to it. And I'm getting much better about listening to another voice, and that's the voice of my body and my health. Health has really been number one throughout this entire process. So it's probably the most grounded I've ever been. And I feel like I've achieved a level of understanding that I never had as an individual person in the world. I am still struggling to look in the mirror, but I'll get there. Maybe. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I can't speak to that at the moment. I'm taking it one day at a time. I understand that you know, my viewer base is a little bit split at this point. I do have a lot of you that came through my natural health series, and I do have a lot of you that came through my more occult stuff, and I'm kind of debating whether I should split this channel into two things, especially as I begin to set up my new space. I'm really excited about it, and I'm really excited to have my family expand at the same time. And I do want to show that to you and, you know, share that experience. There's a lot of magic that goes into all of this. This is the deepest, most intense, wildest magic I've ever experienced. And I think that it would be irresponsible of me as someone who talks about magic to not document this experience. You can also listen to a lot of my thoughts on my podcast, Love and a Little Magic. Like I said, you can find it anywhere, but I'll drop a link below. And also my blog. I have two at this point. My astrology stuff you can actually find on thatastrologer.substack.com. I'm on Substack now, so members will get additional content. And I have a more personal blog about all of this, as well as my experience with motherhood and healthcare and things like that during this time, and that's magicformoms.com. So I'm in a lot of places, and obviously my Instagram at fairlytheta. I'm kind of looking for a new space though too, so like if you have a platform that you're really into right now, please let me know. I would love to try something new. It's 2022, why not? But I'll see you again soon, I promise. And hopefully I won't cry as much in the next one. Thank you for joining me and letting me share this. I hope that it helped some of you through something, and maybe prepared a few more of you for something else. I'll see you next time. Bye.